we've talked about, obviously you're not going to hire an attorney if you have like an Article 15, right? You're going up for office hours or something. But if you could just kind of explain to me the difference between like a summary court martial and a simple Article 15 office hours, and if an attorney should be included in any part of that.
Yeah, well, in Article 15, there's field grade or company grade or NJP captain's master, depending on what service it is. It's non-judicial punishment. And by NJP, it's not in court. You typically have a right to a lawyer. A lawyer's not going to go into captain's mast or going to be at DRB XOI and walk you through that. And so, my typical answer is no, you probably don't need a civilian counsel for that. There are some unique opportunities and unique times when that is, we've been hired to do that. And that's been for more senior folks. Maybe you have a master chief or someone in the chief's mess that, if you get captain's mast, you lose your anchors. It's going to be a huge deal for you. So it goes back to the value proposition, right? But in an Article 15 or NJP, the first stop every single time is talk to the DSO, talk to Trial Defense Services, talk to the ADC. Those guys do it all the time. They're very good at that type of work. They have a lot of experience with that type of work. And if they can help you and they're not overwhelmed, not too busy, then go with them. But if you have a case where, again, I had a chief that retained us on a captain's mast who was going to want to know if he could turn it down because he was potentially, it was going to have some significant implications for him, then it might make sense. But again, it's non-judicial. Depending on what rank you are, whether you can be busted down to an E1 or just lose one grade, there's some, you can go pull up a chart on that and what the potential penalties are. The next level is as a summary court martial. Summary court martial, depending on what rank you are, you can do up to 30 days in confinement, okay? And it's typically not a criminal proceeding as a summary court martial, but the big deal with a summary court martial, why people may want to go to a summary court martial, is it takes it out of the chain of command's hands. Okay, so oftentimes we'll get a call from someone and say, no matter what I put, you can write me the most brilliant rebuttal, the command's ever seen. They're going to look at it and crumple it up and throw it on the garbage and find me guilty, no matter what I do, because the command's out to get me. At that point in time, it may make sense to turn down a NJP or Article 15, because the next step, we usually go to a summary court martial, because a summary court martial officer will get appointed, and they're typically it's a captain or a major or a lieutenant colonel, and they're going to be outside the command, and they're going to hear the case, and they're going to take on the role of what the commander was going to do, but it's going to be someone outside the chain of command. And so while the punishment may be higher, you have to risk a little bit more. You have to put a few more chips in there. There are definitely scenarios where that makes sense when you have toxic commands or toxic climates where you're not going to get a fair shake.
But does it make sense to have an outside attorney in that situation?
You need to be advised by an attorney, without a doubt. And then depending on what the consequence of then it may make sense, right? So we've taken these on. I've taken on summary court martial. I've taken on NJP or captain's mast. But I don't do that in a vacuum. I'm going to do that. Maybe I was retained during the investigation phase of a court martial, and maybe the case went to NJP instead of a court martial. But then I'm going to handle it. But if someone calls me saying, "I just got my first reading of my Article 15. My next reading's in 3 days. Can you help me?" The answer is I'll help them, but they typically aren't going to hire me to do that, or are we going to take that on? Again, however, if they're more senior and that could lead to a discharge board, an administrative separation, a chapter where there are consequences. Now, maybe if we win the NJP, it doesn't go to a separation, then maybe it makes sense, right? But I don't know until I have that conversation. And I'm really having to have a conversation about their circumstances more so than even the facts of the case. So for the bottom line, yes, you need to talk to an attorney. It doesn't necessarily need to be civilian. It probably doesn't need to be civilian. Your first step, always go to trial defense, go to the ADC, go to the defense service office, go there first. They will probably be able to help you out. If they can't, or if you have a very unique situation where this Article 15 or NJP is going to cost you potentially your career, and you want to get just a different piece of advice, then talk to civilian counsel. We can at least point you in the right direction, give you some good advice, or in unique cases, we'll take them on.